What is the greatest threat to humanity? Is it war? Climate change? Or could it be something far deeper, something in the very heart of who we are? Tonight, we're diving into an intellectual battle between two titans of thought, Fyodor Dostoevsky and Friedrich Nietzsche, two minds that saw the human condition in radically different ways, yet both warned of a fundamental crisis, one that still threatens us today. Their warnings cut to the core of what it means to be human. What happens when we lose our moral compass? When we're forced to confront the meaninglessness of existence? In this video, we'll not only explore the conflict between these two thinkers, but also how their insights resonate today in our increasingly chaotic world. So buckle up for a philosophical journey through freedom, suffering, meaning, and power. Dostoevsky's view: the burden of freedom. In Dostoevsky's world, freedom is a double-edged sword. The burden of choice, of moral responsibility, becomes too much to bear for his characters. Take Raskolnikov from Crime and Punishment, a young man who believes that certain people, like himself, are above the law. Raskolnikov justifies his crime by assuming that the murder of an old pawnbroker will enable him to do great good in the world. But after committing the crime, he spirals into a psychological abyss. Dostoevsky shows us the moral and psychological collapse that comes from a life lived without a higher moral grounding. Raskolnikov's guilt is suffocating. His mind unravels. What Dostoevsky is illustrating here is a horrifying truth. Freedom, when untethered from morality, can destroy the very person who embraces it. But Dostoevsky's critique is not just about individuals. He feared that this kind of moral breakdown could unravel society itself. In The Brothers Karamazov, the character Ivan Karamazov famously declares that if God does not exist, then everything is permitted. Without God, even argues, there are no absolute moral truths, no foundation for human values. For Dostoevsky, this was the central threat to humanity: freedom without meaning. Without a moral anchor, humanity risks falling into despair, madness, and chaos. In his world, the loss of faith, whether in God or in any absolute moral system, leads us to confront the abyss of meaninglessness. But let's pause for a moment. Do you think Dostoevsky was right? Are we living in a world where moral decay is threatening society? Look around. What do you think? Nietzsche's rebellion: the will to power and nihilism. Enter Nietzsche, Dostoevsky's philosophical rival, and in many ways a kindred spirit. Nietzsche, too, saw a crisis at the heart of modern society. But where Dostoevsky saw a loss of faith leading to moral decay, Nietzsche saw the collapse of traditional values leading to nihilism. Nietzsche famously declared that God is dead. This statement, often misunderstood, was not a triumphant declaration, but a recognition of a profound crisis in the modern world. As scientific understanding and secularism grew, the old religious and moral frameworks began to crumble. For Nietzsche, the death of God was a reflection of humanity's growing inability to find meaning in the universe. But Nietzsche didn't view this as the end of everything. Instead, he saw the death of God as an opportunity for humanity to create its own meaning, its own values. He proposed the idea of the Übermensch, or Overman, as a response to this crisis. The Übermensch is not bound by traditional moralities or the oppressive structures of society. Instead, the Overman creates their own values. The Overman lives life to its fullest, embracing the chaos and suffering of existence, rather than running from it. For Nietzsche, this is the way forward after the collapse of religious or traditional values. We must become creators of meaning. But Nietzsche didn't sugarcoat this journey. The Overman must confront the abyss of nihilism. He must face the meaninglessness of existence and transcend it. Nietzsche warned that without this transcendence, humanity would fall into despair, into a sense of powerlessness. He called this the will to power, the drive to impose our own meaning onto the world, to assert our existence in the face of an indifferent universe. But Nietzsche also recognized the danger of people misusing this power, either through domination or escapism. So he posed a question: will humanity rise above the abyss of nihilism, or will it succumb to despair? This is a fundamental question Nietzsche left for us. Can we truly create meaning in a world that seems devoid of it? Is the will to power a path to liberation, or a pathway to greater suffering? The conflict: moral collapse versus nihilistic overreach. So where do these two thinkers collide? Both Dostoevsky and Nietzsche recognized the fundamental danger posed by the loss of meaning, but their approaches were radically different. Dostoevsky's concern was moral decay. He believed that without a moral anchor, Whether from God, tradition, or an absolute sense of right and wrong, humanity would spiral into chaos. His characters, like Raskolnikov and Ivan Karamazov, grapple with the consequences of living in a world where moral truths are no longer absolute, where freedom can be wielded recklessly. Nietzsche, on the other hand, feared that the collapse of traditional values would lead to nihilism, a vacuum where meaning no longer exists. His solution, the Overman, was an individual who transcends this nihilism by creating their own values and living with purpose. Nietzsche saw the will to power as the way forward, an act of self-creation in the face of life's inherent meaninglessness. But here's the rub. Nietzsche's ideal Overman, who can create meaning from within, requires a level of self-overcoming and strength that many people simply don't possess. And without this strength, Nietzsche feared humanity would fall into despair, seeking power for power's sake, or clinging to empty ideologies. This clash between Dostoevsky's fear of moral collapse and Nietzsche's fear of nihilism lies at the heart of their intellectual battle. And it's a battle that's still relevant today. The modern relevance, are we doomed? So where does this leave us? Are we witnessing the breakdown that Dostoevsky feared? Or are we drifting toward the nihilism Nietzsche predicted? If we look around today, we see signs of both thinkers' warnings. The decline of traditional religious belief and moral systems seems to be giving rise to a fragmented society, one that's unsure of where its moral compass lies. Political polarization, environmental collapse, and the rise of global crises all contribute to the feeling that something is deeply wrong. At the same time, we see the rise of new ideologies, new philosophies, and new movements. Some people are seeking to create meaning in the face of this uncertainty. They're embracing the idea of self-empowerment, forging their own identities, and striving to create values in a world that no longer provides them. But is this enough? Can we really create meaning from within, as Nietzsche suggested? Or are we too fractured as a society? Can we navigate the world's crises without falling into despair or chaos? And here's the ultimate question. Are we truly facing a choice between Dostoevsky's moral collapse and Nietzsche's nihilistic abyss? The true danger, the search for meaning. The fundamental threat to humanity isn't some external force. It's our own search for meaning. Both Dostoevsky and Nietzsche showed us that the true danger is whether we choose to face that search or run from it. Dostoevsky's characters, like Raskolnikov, show us the devastating consequences of a world where meaning has been stripped away, leaving only the freedom to choose. Nietzsche's Overman, on the other hand, calls us to face the void and create meaning from within, embracing life with all its chaos and suffering. But can we really rise above the nihilistic abyss, or are we too trapped in the currents of moral decay and power struggles? The battle between Dostoevsky and Nietzsche is not just an intellectual exercise, it's a battle that we all face in our lives. Will we find meaning, or will we succumb to despair? The path ahead. Which way will we choose? So, which path will we take? Will we find redemption in our shared humanity, as Dostoevsky believed, finding faith and love as the guiding light in a dark world? Or will we, like Nietzsche, embrace the challenge of creating our own values, daring to live with purpose in a meaningless world? The answers are not simple. The world today, with all its complexities and contradictions, is a battleground for these ideas. But one thing is clear, the choice is ours to make. The battle between meaning and meaninglessness, between freedom and responsibility, continues. The question remains, where do you stand? Will you face the abyss or turn away from it? The fundamental threat to humanity is not something out there, it's in here. In the way we search for meaning, in the choices we make, and in the values we create. The battle continues, and it's up to